Hunting animals to provide food and other products such as fur or hides has gone on for millions of years. It was once essential to the survival of human beings and an integral part of our history. As far as recreational hunting goes, that is hunting for sport rather than survival, that's been happening since the Assyrian kings took to their chariots and hunted lions just to show off. And their kingdom was founded as far back as the 21st century BC. In Roman law, owning property gave the title holder the right to hunt on it. The Frankish kings of both the Merovingian from the 5th to the middle of the 8th centuries and the Carolingian monarchs who followed considered the whole kingdom their property and therefore controlled huge royal hunting domains. For the medievals, hunting was a revered sport, a display of strength, skill, and social standing. Let's travel back to the Middle Ages and take a look at this favourite pursuit of kings, the hunters, the prey that was hunted, and the customs that surrounded this ancient pastime. Welcome to Medieval Madness. The sport of kings. The European upper classes, the nobility, the knights and the royals all hunted. For people of their class, it was simply expected. Of course, it was not just the pastime of the elites, every community took part, and for the vast majority, the 90% who were peasants, hunting was a necessity. For all European medievals, the church oversaw every aspect of their lives, and the thought of committing any sort of sin loomed large. Avoiding laziness was a great cure for this. After all, the devil made work for idle hands, so for the ruling classes at least, hunting was the perfect antidote, and according to Richard Almond in his book Medieval Hunting, it, quote, provided the ideal anodyne of healthy, violent, and enjoyable exercise. Edward of Norwich, the second Duke of York, who wrote his treaty The Master of Game sometime between 1406 and 1413, was sure that idleness would, quote, draweth men to the imaginations of fleshly lust and pleasure. Children of the nobility were expected to go hunting at a very early age. The Duke of York, who was master of the hart hounds for King Henry IV of England, said, quote, it will teach a man to be a good hunter, first he must be a child past 7 or 8. Some literature discussed how important it was for young nobles to take part in hunts, like the 12th century epic Tristan and the 13th century poem Guy of Warwick. The lives of these fictional heroes crossed over into the real world so that in 1251, by the age of 10, Alexander III of Scotland was hunting near York in the Forest of Galtres, and in 1433, Henry VI of England was hare coursing and fox hunting in Bury St Edmunds when he was 12. It was a major part of a young man's education, along with religion and etiquette, which were taught practically from birth. Hunting taught a boy how to handle a horse, manage weapons, formulate strategy, and assess the terrain. Skills that they could transfer from the hunt to the battlefield when needed. Hound Dog. In both France and England, hunts were well-planned affairs. Long-distance or endurance hunting, known as hunt par force, meant that everyone had a specific role. Anyone who made a mistake during the hunt could easily get lost, and that put the rest of the unit in danger. Par force was considered the noblest form of hunting. Gaston III, Count of Foix, wrote Livre de chasse, the Book of the Hunt, in the late 14th century. The book, a manual on hunting, has been described as one of the most important books of its kind. For Gaston, the hunt wasn't about killing the largest animal, it was about the ritual, the process, and about killing beasts, quote, nobly and gently. Most forests belonged to the monarch and were under the jurisdiction of the king. Therefore, because of the forest laws, only those who had been granted a special license could hunt there, although the inhabitants of the forest traditionally also had hunting rights. In his early 15th century hunting treaty, Master of Game, Edward of Norwich, the second Duke of York, referred to hunting hounds as, quote, true to his lord or master, of great understanding and knowledge and strength, is wise and kind, hath great mind and great smelling. All in all, he believed the hound to be, quote, the most reasonable beast and best knowing of any that ever God made. The dog breeds usually used on a medieval hunt were the greyhound, the mastiff, the alaunt, which is now extinct, and the running hound. They all had their own special purpose, and on some hunts more than one breed was taken. Of course, the greyhound was perfect for its speed and ability to pull down its prey, even if the quarry was in mid-flight. The heavier allants were better for stronger beasts such as boars and bears. Illustrations in the revered chassis show them muzzled and wearing studded collars. According to Gaston, the best way to hunt larger game was to take both breeds. Greyhounds being faster could catch the prey first, and the allant being stronger could grip them, quote, better than any 3 of the finest greyhounds one could find. Royal blood. Most meat was supplied by deer, whether they be red the largest and most prized, fallow, or roe deer the smallest. The 13th century German knight Geisenus was a falconer who wrote the Latin treatise De Arte Pisandi on the art of deer hunting. He listed shooting well with the bow, training his scent hounds to follow a trail of blood, placing the archers in the proper position, and most important of all, observing the wind as the necessary abilities needed by a hunter. There was a constant demand for venison, not least because it provided fresh meat, especially in winter when many of the domestic animals may have already been slaughtered and salted in the autumn. It is written in the Master of Game that King Edward II sent his huntsmen to forests all around England in search of venison. Edward sent either his Master of Buckhounds, Greyhounds, or Harriers in search of harts, bucks, and does. On just 2 days in July of 1315, Edward ordered that 648 deer were to be killed in 33 parks, chases, and forests. In fact, the quantity of game needed by the king was so great that his huntsmen took to herding the deer into nets for slaughter. It was hardly the sporting pastime that the nobility had expected. The adult male red deer, known as the hart, was considered the king of all the wild animals. If the hart was the noblest of quarries, then the boar was its antithesis. The deer, beautiful, elegant, and brave, was thought to have a bone in its heart that meant it could not die of fear. On the other hand, the boar was a huge, ugly black beast capable of killing dog, horse, or man, and it was also seen as fearless. According to Gaston III, the boar was, quote, the animal which will kill a man or a beast most quickly, for a lion or a leopard will not kill a man or a beast with one blow. As he does, the boar kills with a single stroke, as one might with a knife. He is a fierce beast, proud and perilous, for I have seen him strike a man and split him from knee to chest, so that he fell dead without a word. He has often brought me to the ground, horse and man together, killing my horse. Hunted all over Europe, the boar was particularly popular in Germany and on the Iberian Peninsula. King John I of Portugal liked to hunt boar, but warned that if the boar saw him, pricked up its ears and rolled its eyes in rage, then he must prepare himself or risk maiming or death. The hare, which many country folk in the Middle Ages believed could change gender at will, was a highly prized quarry, especially in England. It was described by Gaston as splendid little beast, probably because it was seen as the hardest animal to outwit and too quick to outrun. The hare never ran in a straight line, was subtle and crafty so that, quote, no man in the world would say that a hound could unravel her path to find her. Like the master of the king's hunt, the post of Lord Falconer was a high position at the royal court. Whether it was the peregrine, the heavier guy falcon, the lanner, usually flown in couplets, the alphanet from North Africa, the Arabian saker, or the pretty little merlin, the housing, training, and keeping of a hawk was an expensive business. By the time they were ready to hunt in the field, many hours and a good deal of money had been invested in these deadly birds. Working with the bird dogs and spaniels who bring back all manner of birds, the hawk may take out ducks, pheasants, partridges, or larger birds such as herons and cranes. Holy Roman Emperor Frederick I, who wrote The Art of Hunting with Birds, the first treatise on the subject of falconry, recommended taking along a, quote, medium-sized greyhound who can reach the struggling quarry in time to prevent it from injuring the falcon. The Unpalatable. As far as Gaston was concerned, the wolf, which, quote, most people have seen, was a threat to rural areas everywhere and sometimes killed animals as large as a cow, so they could easily carry a sheep or a goat away. They are the only animal mentioned in medieval writings as using humans as a regular source of food. Even older wolves who were toothless and slow might carry off a small child if given the opportunity. Wolves would often follow marching armies to feed on the carrion of the beasts or the dead horses or other things left behind. The dead wolf was of little use to the medievals, although there were some folk remedies that called for parts of the animal. The meat was tough, and many complained that the pelt, although great for warm mittens and cloaks, always had the stink of the animal on it. So they were killed for practical reasons rather than sport, usually in traps or by par force when necessary. The fox was seen as a pest for any owner of domestic birds such as chickens or geese, and were feared and hated and hunted regularly. In the same way, the otter was seen as greedy, crafty, and a menace to anyone with a fish pond. Accidental death. Like many things in the Middle Ages, hunting could be a dangerous pastime. The 9th century Byzantine Emperor Basil I was killed when his belt became entangled in the antlers of a stag during a hunt. The animal dragged him for around 26 kilometers or 16 miles through the woods. Not surprisingly, Basil contracted a fever and died shortly afterwards. Another Byzantine emperor, this time from the 12th century, was killed during a hunt. John II Komnenos was running down a boar on Mount Taurus in Cilicia, Western Asia, when he accidentally nicked himself with a poisoned arrow. The wound became infected, and John died a few days later in April of 1143, probably from sepsis. And on a lighter note, most medievals, or those who could read anyway, would have been no more surprised to run into a unicorn while out hunting than if they ran into another exotic animal like a reindeer, because everybody knew that unicorns existed. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Medieval Madness. If you enjoyed this video, then please do subscribe to the channel, as we do release videos just like this one every Friday. So until next time, hope everyone has an amazing week. Cheers!